Hello everyone, this is ETV Special Edition and I'm Sintayo Tamrat with this edition. With this edition, I'll try to focus on the progress toward this commencing Ethiopian Securities Exchange and the East African experience. Here I'm joined by Dr. Gamechu Aktola, CEO and founder of iCapital Africa Institute, and David Wainaina, Chief Operating Officer, Nairobi Securities Exchange. Thank you so much for joining me and to stay with us. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Gamechu and David.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, my first point will be for David Wainaina. And would you just give us a brief overview of the Kenyan Securities Exchange, the development, when it started, and the status it is now?
Yeah, sure. And thank you very much for having me. Allow me, before I give you that background, to pass our regards from Nairobi to all our viewers. Back to your question, the Nairobi Securities Exchange has come a long way. We started having this exchange back in 1954 when the company was formulated under a cup of tea. So we have walked a long journey until back in 1991 when the company transitioned from an association of a few members to a company listed by shares. We did not stop there. We have been making a lot of progress just to ensure that the company is speaking to the needs of the economy. And in 2014, the company converted from a mutual company to a company that wanted to go public through a process we called demutualization. So the exchange, I must confirm to you, that has come a very long journey, right from 1954. It is near 70 years. And we are very happy to be here because we believe that the exchange that is about to be developed here should not take 70 years to be where we are. We want to make it a little bit shorter through our experiences. Thank you.
That's good. And Dr. Gamechu, I think Ethiopia lagged far behind even among East African countries. And how did you get the government's decision to bring back Securities Exchange to track?
Yes, the discussion has taken a long time. It's been in the discussion to have functioning capital market in Ethiopia. And in fact, in history, there was once that we had a functioning capital market in a certain scope. So there was a push for many time, including on the summits that we organized, East African Finance Summit, there was a discussion going on, and there was promise now and then, but it didn't happen. But now, it's very exciting time because now we have all the regulations that it takes, that it needs to establish capital market in Ethiopia. And now the proclamation is enacted, and now because it's an opportunity coming and there is a huge momentum going on, there are also things that are happening at different levels, but I think huge opportunity is coming for Ethiopia.
Given that Securities Exchange in Kenya is on a good shape, what factors do you think have contributed to the success or just the status it attained right now?
So sure, the stock exchange, you know, as I have said, has come a long way. And the reason why there is this stock exchange is fundamentally because of the role that the stock exchange plays in an economy. The stock exchange really did play a very great role, even from a government perspective, when the government wanted to privatize some of these companies that they were owning. Remember, it is a very huge source of long-term financing. So the government had a lot of support for the stock exchange. They came in and privatized a number of companies. Our airline came into the picture. One of our big banks that was then fully owned by government came into the picture. So it is an avenue for government to release some of these companies to the public. Number two, and probably most importantly also, the stock exchange plays a very critical role in having financing for the medium and enterprises. So a number of them have also come to the market, and they have been able to raise capital, and they go and invest this capital to grow their businesses. So I must say here that there has been a push from the supply side where companies want to come and access a little bit of a longer term capital other than our traditional commercial banks, and that's the role that the stock exchange plays. I must also mention in here that investors want to earn a stake of their best performing companies, and the best way to own those companies is to come to the stock exchange and buy those shares. So given the supply side of things where companies were looking for capital and the demand side of things where Kenyans and international investors were looking to be owners of those companies, then we had no choice to have a vibrant stock exchange, and that is what we have in the Nairobi Securities Exchange.
Who are the major actors in the Kenyan Securities Exchange? The foreign investors or just locals?
Let me say that currently we have had major participants being of foreign nature. But I must mention here that last year, especially when the COVID situation affected the whole world, that market has significantly been supported by the local space. We have seen before COVID, probably 7% of the market was foreign in nature, but now that has come down significantly where we are at around 50-50. So the point here is that both local and foreign participation has really contributed towards the growth of the market. And as a strategy, the exchange and any local exchange should also ensure that as much as there is foreign interest into the exchange, also the locals are participating, and we have had very good enabling environment to ensure that our local are participating in the local exchange. Just to give an example, that it will take you just a minimum of 100 securities for you to be able to become a shareholder of those great companies that are listed as the exchange. So those are some of the policies that we have done to ensure that there is both local and foreign participation.
Dr. Gamechu, let me come to you. And Ethiopia is just on the brink of launching a securities exchange. And how did you get the preparation so far by different sides?
Yeah, already, as you know, the proclamation is enacted last year. And since then, the National Bank of Ethiopia has taken the initiative to establish a group, a team that works on the operationalization of the proclamation, so all the players, according to this proclamation and the team that has established, there are 4 conditions for the ecosystem to function, in a very strong way. And the regulatory space is very important. The market development is David can say a lot of things because they have that experience. But at the same time, there is regulatory, the policy space, as well as the capacity building. Both the human capacity and institutional capacity are very important. So we have the team. The team is coming up with different regulations, how Capital Market Authority functions, because that's the Capital Market Authority that is going to regulate the capital market development and how it functions. So in the ecosystem, there are different actors, including the exchange. There are market intermediaries that need to be developed. All this regulation and licensing is going to take place by Capital Market Authority in Ethiopia. Now we have the authority, and it's going to be, starting its operation. But there is a team that's working on that, and there is a stakeholder consultation that's going on. And then we're going to have, and also the Securities Exchange is under, Ethiopian Securities Exchange is under establishment, under the Ethiopia Holding Group. So that is going to be something that we see as a market place, like Nairobi Securities Exchange is doing. And at the same time, then the market development side, we have to, learn what are the products is going to be, including the bonds, the shares, what do we sell, what do we market, and what is issued, what is demanded, and everything. This is something to figure out. But pretty much it's a new experience for us, since we know the last couple of decades, many of us, including in the banks, the government people, in the government policy domain, it's pretty much a new experience. But I think a lot of things are moving quickly, and where everyone has to be ready to know what's happening, to shape how it has to develop, and to take opportunities out of it. We are late because there were many missed opportunities. Like David was saying, privatization of enterprises, public enterprises happened. We didn't have capital market that was functioning. So, the transfer of ownership, and the public did not have the opportunity to get ownership of those enterprises. And again, there are many share companies that are under establishment, and how do they function? How shares are transferred, ownership, and there is a lot of issue happening. So I think for the government, for the private sector, for professionals, this is going to be an opportune time to take advantage of it. That's how I see it. But a lot of interesting things are happening.
Well, that's nice. And let me now come to your company, Nairobi Securities Exchange. And can you just share to the Ethiopian actors the challenges it has faced and how you overcome it?
So there is probably no venture without a challenge. The bottom line is how you change the challenge to an opportunity. When, as an exchange, we started this journey, at some point we had to invest heavily on infrastructure. And the reason why we had to invest in top-notch infrastructure is because when we started, the market was operating from a very manual environment. People were just shouting in a trading floor. Everything was manual. So even from a settlement perspective, it used to take you more than 10 days if you have sold shares to receive your money. And it used to equally take you 10 days if you have bought shares to receive your securities. That's long enough. 10 days is a long time when you have bought something in terms of a security and you have not received it. So that was a big challenge. And the way we dealt with that was to ensure that we invest in systems. We did invest in a very good depository system, and that is where all the shares are deposited. Before a company comes to the market, they will need to have those securities availed in a depository in electronic form. Today, in most exchanges that operate securities outside an exchange, like in Ethiopia, they operate certificates. So by the time you are converting a certificate to money, it will take you not less than 2 weeks. So that was a very huge challenge for us that we had to address from a manual environment to an automated environment. And that involved investing in systems. So we do have very good systems from a depository perspective. Now, when we automated the back end from where these securities are being deposited, it was faster now because you don't need to verify whether that security belongs to X, it is there in your account. So now there was a lot of pressure from the stock exchange because now people wanted to trade very fast. So again, we had to come back and invest in a system from the stock exchange so that people now are able to buy and sell very fast. So that meant that we were able, the moment we automated the back end, that is the depository, and the front end, that is the trading system that is owned by the exchange, we moved that cycle from the 10 days I have spoken about to 3 days. So within 3 days, people were able to receive their money, and within 3 days, people were able to receive their securities from a manual environment. It was phenomenal. The market went up in terms of trading activity 400 times because people are also able to come twice a week. Now we have gone further and brought that down to a day. And that's why I was saying that it doesn't have to take Ethiopia Stock Exchange 70 years. We are here just to confirm that they are having the right conversation with us so that instead of starting with that very difficult manual journey, they at the onset put the right infrastructure so that instead of starting with 10 days, they can start probably with 3. And instead of taking 70 years to get to 1 day so that you can receive their money, probably they just take a few years.
That's nice mentioning. And let me come to you, Dr. Gamechu, and what will be the role of companies like yours in assisting or facilitating the successful implementation of the Ethiopian Securities Exchange project?
So we are under the process of building the capital market ecosystem in general. So in the ecosystem, there are multiple players. And companies like ours, because iCapital Africa is in the capacity building in the advisory domain, and we also create knowledge sharing platforms. That's what we do. So pretty much when we look at from the 4 pillars I was talking about earlier, and then we are key players along with our partner, Nairobi Securities Exchange, in the capacity building, institutional and human capacity building in this country for the capital market ecosystem building process. So now the regulation is there, and the Ethiopia Securities Exchange is under formation, and there are many consultations are going on around. So a lot of things are happening, but all these things happen if you don't have institutional capacity and if we don't have human capacity that can run it, that can understand or if we don't have as many organizations who understand what is actually coming. Some might think it's a monster coming. Some might, it's the way you look at it. It's an opportunity that we have to unlock as a country. And like David was saying, we don't have to start from zero, because we have the latecomer advantage in this market. So like we don't have to do the 2 weeks, 3 weeks process to start. We can do it in a day or two processes. We can cut them short because we have the opportunity to learn from others like NSE, Nairobi Securities Exchange, and others, how they did it and where they are. We can share resources, we can share capacity, we can learn from them. And so this is, we believe, as iCapital, this is a very critical moment for building that human capacity and institutional capacity. So which ones are going to be listed? Which ones need to be established? Like in the market intermediaries, the brokerage, the investment bank that he was mentioning earlier. So who should establish them? If we don't know which ones are available, how do you establish? If you don't have the capacity, how are you going to run them? So this is why we're, working in the domain of capacity building by partnering, the leading African exchange, and that's Nairobi Securities Exchange, because pretty much many are wondering about, what opportunities are available, what are the challenges, what kind of capacity do we need, what do we need to do in the first place? We need studies, we need advisories, support, and that's what we are bringing through this partnership. And similarly, like we are in the active, one of the key players in the ecosystem, there are many others. So from professional service side, from advisory and capacity building side, we're coming this way. And also there are others that need to do their part. And similarly, they are in the government, they are the private sector, and they are professionals. But probably we can discuss that in a certain way. But this is, for us, it's like identifying ourselves as one of the key players in the ecosystem and bringing that capacity to the market, to Ethiopia, along with forming partnership where we can bring practical experiences, not theoretical aspect of capital market. And those guys, they have solid experience. They are the market. They are the ones doing. That's what they do for a living. If you see in this market, many are trying to, because it's an opportunity for everyone, many are trying to help in terms of capital market development, in terms of establishing the exchange, in terms of a lot of things. But what makes this partnership different is that we are partnering with the ones who are actually doing the job. This day in, day out, that's what they do. So it's practical, it's real. So it's so when we organize this workshops like where capacity building trainings are undertaken, we're not only trying to share their experience conceptually, but also we're hoping to facilitate practical exposures where they can, our team, people, organizations, leaders, professionals can get the opportunity to actually see what's happening, meet the brokers, meet the investment bankers, meet the exchange people, how do they do it? Because some of us have only the idea of what it might look like, but seeing practically can change a lot of things. This is, I think, what we can do. We can get into short-term. We can provide together. We are planning to provide short-term courses. We're planning to provide exposure-based visits where they can see what can be done. We have that discussion on how we can help in terms of studies of opportunities, see feasibilities, and even support organizations that are in the ecosystem to be established. What does it take for them to be ready? So for us, this is an opportunity to take advantage of a latecomer opportunity by partnering with the right partner in Africa. That's what we're very much excited about.
So that's nice. And when you hear about Ethiopia is going to launch this securities exchange or capital market, so in what ways have you thought or planned to help this project?
He made the point that they have what he's calling latecomer advantage. And we are going to come into this partnership in a number of ways. One, we are going to support and assist and partner in very practical experiences along the very partners who will be involved in this eco chain. When the stock exchange is established here, you expect that there will be a host of intermediaries who are coming into the table. We expect that there will be stockbrokers, there will be fund managers, there will be investment advisors, there will be the capital markets authority, and the exchange itself. Remember, the exchange is an entity that is governed in its own right. So we're going to have a conversation with even the exchange team and tell them, this is what you need to do to support the market. The role of an exchange really is to provide a platform so that issuers can be able to meet, investors, and that work is the main mandate of the exchange. And we're going to have a conversation with the exchange so that we show them how this is done in the best way possible. Number three, I think we will also have a conversation with the policymakers in this country just to advise, as it were, what are the enabling policy interventions that needs to come into the picture so that you support your capital markets. I can tell you again, I can repeat here that the capital markets work is to provide that long-term funding. So who needs this funding? You will have the government of Ethiopia in here. You will have companies in there that are coming to access, the capital markets for that long-term funding. How then can it be done in a manner that is, number one, efficient, economical, and there are some incentives. So through this ICAP, partnership, we are going to offer our experiences from Kenya so that they can take the best and take this market forward. He has also spoken about capacity building. For stock exchanges, the main second mandate of any stock exchange is capacity building because it is qualified as a sort of a complicated way of doing business, but that can be demystified if you have a very good capacity building program. So we hope to partner with iCapital here so that we bring that capacity not only in Addis, we want to spread it across the 120 million population in this country. So we appreciate that the work is huge, but with the partnership, we are prepared in the best interest of East Africans to ensure that comes to Ethiopia. And so that Ethiopia, from where we sit, my country, Kenya, has a population of about 50 million. You have a population of about 120 million shillings. We are operating on about 24% of our GDP, 23 billion exchange. So the expectation is that the exchange that we are going to set up here is about 5-6 folds. That is huge. So the opportunity, I must say, is huge, and you're happy to partner. And as we have said here, it doesn't have to take 70 years. We are going to support with the right legal framework, with the right capacity building framework, with the right technical advice so that you can have the right systems and so that this market takes off.
In line with this, there are some reports some African countries have failed when it comes to this capital market, even after operation for some decades. So how could you tell the contribution of the Kenyan stock market or capital market for the Kenyan economy as well as for the Kenyan finance sector?
I have made the earlier point that our stock exchange is currently about 24% of our gross domestic product, of our GDP. So that's about $23 billion US. So the amount of debt that the government has come off the exchange and borrowed is significant. It's also equally about $23 billion. So the stock exchange has played a...
Yeah, this is just at macro level. And what if, for example, if you talk about issues like creating job opportunities and helping startups availing business, capital for them and so on?
Very good. At that level, then, the stock exchange is a very good investment opportunities for the local investors. We have seen companies that have come into list by way of initial public offers. Those companies come at a certain entry point, and investors make as high as 200-300% gain. And that is a huge opportunity in terms of investment. From the government bond side also, investors are able to buy these securities because our minimum is about 50,000 Kenya shillings, and you get a return of double digits. We have even gone further and ensured that even from our government bond space, the market is on your phone through technology, through the mobile phone. So that ease of access ensured that an investor does not have to walk all the way to the capital city and open an account with a broker. That is done at the comfort of their phone. So given all these investments, we are sure that we are changing lives from an investment perspective, and that is one of the main roles of exchanges. We have also come up with programs. We do recognize that there are those small companies that, are not yet ready for listing. So we have gone a step lower and ensured that if you're a small company, then we have come up with a program that trains companies, accelerates them so that they're able to access long-term funds. And that program is called Ibuka. Ibuka in my local language means to emerge. So we are supporting small companies to be able to emerge by accessing financing through the exchange so that they become large enough with a view to list in the future by way of introduction. So to your question, we believe that we have had a serious impact in the enterprise market, in the investment market through our retail investors, and we shall continue doing this as we transform lives in Kenya.
And Dr. Gamache, do you think that the Ethiopian Securities Exchange can contribute in the same way for the economy as well as for the finance sector, even just to the grassroots level, for example, farmers?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Let me pick from the question, what I'm thinking on the question why others did not succeed as they intended to and why other exchanges succeeded. And pretty much it's a success story in Kenya, as you know it. Capital market is a success story. Why it succeeded in Kenya and why it didn't succeed in other countries. I think it's from the initial, that's my personal understanding from the information that I have. The way initially they thought about it, the way they started it, the way they run it. So now we have two stories. We have success stories, we have failure stories or challenge stories. Now, that's why we're saying we're latecomers. So we have that opportunity to learn, not to repeat the same mistakes. And so how do we create the enabling environment? What kind of regulations, do we need to have in place? What kind of infrastructure do we need to have? What kind of products do we need to have? What kind of capacity? So here is the learning. And I think this is one of the opportunities Ethiopia has as a latecomer. Even though it's too late, many opportunities has passed. We missed it, but it's still, we have a lot to benefit out of it. So one of the things as a country, how the economy can benefit. Okay, if it's, see how the capital market is contributing to the GDP in Kenya and other countries. And how much does it contribute in Ethiopia right now? If we do it right, how much contribution are we going to see? And the other problems currently we see is we have big project aspirations, Government wants to start new projects, big projects. Those projects are probably projects that can take long time, that might need long-term financing, and probably they are going to create so many jobs, business opportunities, but we have difficulty to finance them because we don't have, a kind of, David, you can help me around this, but one of the opportunities is that for the government to have access to financing for such big projects that are in pipeline, in aspirations, a lot of things. That's another way to look at it. So, big initiatives can be supported. Otherwise, we have to rely on other sources of funding, because we don't have functioning capital market or exchange opportunities. So this is going to be addressed. So it's a big opportunity. And the other thing is, okay, when you want to, start a company, or when you list a company, and when you issue shares, stocks, whatever, you're giving an opportunity for people to invest, for people to buy shares. So you're wills you're creating for others, giving them an opportunity where they can invest on reliable, well-vetted companies, in a very regulated market, so that they can make money, they can get dividend, they can invest, they can even encourage saving. And so it's an opportunity for everybody. And also people can come up with new ideas of companies where they want to establish companies or businesses. Currently, how do you bring financing together? So you approach people you ask some people in your circle, so because you don't have access to financing or you have to go to banks or something like that. When we have similar exchange, some that are functioning, then that gives people an opportunity to come up, with initial public offering where they can sell their ideas and promote their ideas, and so that so they can go through the regulation, the vetting process, whatever, the valuation process, and then they can get value, they can resource money for innovative ideas. Probably when can that happen? Can that happen in a short term, medium? I don't know, but that's what needs. But generally, I think the benefit is not only for the top-notch society or the elite part of it, but it's a benefit as long as the education, especially because people have to be educated. Capacity has to be built. And at the grassroots, like he was mentioning about, you can buy shares from any countryside as long as you have connections to internet. So a farmer can do that. Why not? A farmer can buy a share from a big company and own it and transfer it when he doesn't need to. That's opportunity that's being created. So wealth is, being created. People are getting, opportunity to invest, and not only that, to own companies. And these are, I think, the opportunity enormous. The experience is limited. We don't have that solid experience, but given the number, given the momentum of the economy, given the aspirations of young people, and the way farmers are trying to transform their productivity and production, and the way, all these things are opportunities. And so the society, every one of us will have a chance to benefit from this. But what needs to be done is people should know about it and how it works. They need the capacity, they need access. These are the things in the ecosystem. So there are other actors, like you said, banks, other organizations. So for banks, the first thing is, will they be able to be listed? What do they need to prepare for listing their shares and making it available on the stock exchange? So that's another questions they have to ask. Do they have the capacity? Do they have the knowledge to do that? And as financial institutions, as organizations with large shareholders, what other investment opportunities do they see? Do they have to invest on the exchange? Do they see opportunities there? Do they know that they can invest on even the securities exchange under establishment, where government is holding 25% and the rest is available for investment for everyone? Banks, they can invest there. How about investment fund management or investment banks? How about the brokerage services? They can take those opportunities for themselves as companies. Not only that, but also they can advise their shareholders. They can advise their customers, clients. They can create more value by providing additional products, services, that facilitates the exchange. They can make money because they can come up with additional products which they have not been offering so far. But to do all this, to unlock this huge opportunity, it starts from having the awareness, the understanding. It just can't occur without it. So it starts from understanding what it is, having the right professionals, people, and having the practical exposure. That's what we are trying to do. That's what we're trying to create in this space. So everyone has a role in this, but it needs to take a step, to that.
Well, Dr. Gemechu, here I could see that there could be big opportunities for the actors to invest and to get huge return, but also for the people of Ethiopia as well to benefit from the security exchange or capital market. But what expected challenges can you see that Ethiopia, this project can face during implementation?
Well, I think like I said earlier, probably David has also mentioned it earlier. Now, where do we start? Do we want to start from the beginning and learn again and again and again, or take that latecomer advantage? Do we have, okay, it's one thing to have a proclamation enacted. It's another thing to implement it in the way it is supposed to help the operationalization of the proclamation. And it needs the openness and for new ideas, from the regulation perspective. And every policy and regulatory entity that is required to facilitate, the implementation needs to be forward-looking. It should not be preventive. It should be facilitating, enabling environment needs to be created. And also looking at our commercial codes. Do they support the registration of new companies? Or should we include them in our commercial code? That's another story to look at it. And also, we have come in our economy, like in the business or in general, we tended to be more closed than having the appetite to open up and see new things from other countries, learn from other countries, instead of just closing everything and saying, no, we have to protect this market, we have to protect organizations and companies. There has to be a limit to the extent to which we protect. We have to be careful, but we should not be overprotective in many ways. But currently, as you know, in the finance sector, you name it, we are overprotective. I understand why we are overprotective, but it is not going to take us a long way. We need to open up as a society, and if we don't do that, it's a challenge. So that's one thing. Having the right technology, the right infrastructure in place, because we don't afford to fix problems again and again. I don't think it gives us that opportunity. So starting it right, with the right technology, with the right partners, and with the right infrastructure as much as possible, as quick as possible. We don't have to recreate the whole thing. So like using whatever is available, and these are the challenges. And the other thing is, how many organizations are coming? We need success stories or lead organizations who are going to take the first opportunity, and we have to create those quickly. Unless we create those companies, entities quickly, probably everyone waits another, and another one waits another, and it's not going to happen. So we have to be able to create, the lead takers, the leaders who can quickly, take the opportunity, be listed, and create something for the ecosystem to function. Others will follow. You know how business works in Ethiopia. If you start a hotel next door, and others will definitely follow you. If you start a product, others will start to create the product. And so unless we are able to create those leaders or quick entities that can take advantage, that could be another challenge. But I generally see huge opportunities, and the challenge, converting the challenge into opportunity is the key issue here.
Mr. David, what would be your recommendations that need to be taken by the Ethiopian Securities Exchange actors so that Ethiopia can have a smoother, successful implementation of the Securities Exchange project?
Very good. The first thing that they have to do is that they have to get the right infrastructure in place from a legal and from a system perspective. The legal framework must be supportive enough and give the potential companies the incentives to come to the market. I'll give you an example. If you have a highly profitable business that meets all the qualification of a listing, why would it come to the stock exchange and give its shares to the public? That will be addressed in the incentive that you're giving that company, probably from a tax perspective. That company might be paying probably lower taxes. So the incentive structure that you're giving companies that are coming to the market has to be very well thought and anchored into the act that has been promulgated, as he has said. Two, you need to get the right partners as an exchange. And partners will come in very many ways. You will have partners that are coming in to support the chain that is between the exchange and the investor. You have your typical advisors. What qualifications would your advisors have so that they're able to give the right information? That will come in, as he has said, instead of reinvesting the wheel. I mean, the potential partners have to partner with entities that have do it so that the turnaround time for them to be able to up their skills can be shorter, and they bring these companies to the market. Again, our advice to the exchange is that facilitate this kind of partnership to take place. He has made a point that there is also need for the policy makers to have that shift. Protection is good, but it can only go to a certain extent. Let us move with knowing that there could be risk ahead, but how do we cover that risk? Otherwise, we cannot come and say there is risk ahead, so we are not going to do anything. And I think if those three are addressed, you will have one of the most vibrant exchanges in Africa. And why do I say so? I say so because, number one, though you have the late come advantage. Two, from a demand side of things, you have potential investors. You will not go to look for investors. Your population is large enough. Your exchange can be local driven as opposed to foreign driven by virtue of the population that you have on country. And how does that work? If you have incentives for these also investors to come to the market, example, if someone comes to the market and make a return, give that as an incentive that it is not taxed. They will all stream into the market, and you build that culture of savings through the securities that are coming into the picture. So you have an opportunity, and you have an opportunity to advise the exchange that have the right policies, have the right legal framework, have the right infrastructure, partner with the policymakers, including government that has a very huge stake in the operations of a stock exchange, and you have a significantly vibrant exchange. Finally, we must be able to look beyond the borders of Ethiopia. A stock exchange also can be vibrant by admitting companies that are offshore to come into your economy so that your local investors can access those companies by way of cross-listed securities. You can also take your companies offshore and they list in Nairobi. So think beyond the borders and have the enabling environment to support some of these initiatives that we call them cross-listing. And that way, your exchange will grow locally and will spread its wings beyond the borders of Addis. And given the competitive advantage that you have, and that is the population in here, the expectation is that you will have one of the largest and vibrant markets in Africa, if not the world.
The discussion has been, going on around, but we have come to the actual point where everything should come together, and now the operation start, the game. So the question is, what's the game plan? Okay, now we have the legal framework. The proclamation is there, but like I said earlier, it's how do we operationalize it? How do we take it to the ground where key actors will be motivated, encouraged, see value in it? And so I'll get back to the idea that I said, in our country, we know it from our experience. We have lived long enough to witness this. We don't have as much of the regulation problems. Of course, it's a key issue to have them. But the regulators, the government, the people concerned should not be complacent, thinking that they have the regulation, and now the country has enacted the proclamation, and the capital market authority is to be established, and it's going to be come up with the licensing and everything. But when the operation starts, now, for me, my understanding is that those key players, issuers, have to come forward, and they have to feel that this capital market is creating an opportunity for them, and the regulatory environment that allows them to come to the playground should be motivating to them. I say this because in the finance sector, we know there is always an issue around, around instead of enabling the sector, a kind of enforcement of regulation, which is equally important, but the rules and the policy should be enabling and supporting, encouraging. The tax system need to be considered. What do they get by coming into the exchange? And incentivizing them, like he said, encouraging them, giving them a privilege compared to those who are not listed, so that they see value in doing business. So, and the other thing is, to be successful, aggressive awareness creation is needed from the media, and using all instruments available, educational system available, because these kids today are the next, in school today, if they're not aware about how these functions and what opportunities are created, probably they're not going to be the key players tomorrow. Because if we say we are building sustainable mechanism and sustainable capital market development, education plays the key role. Awareness of the public plays the key role. Digital literacy plays the key role. In fact, it's not only for the capital market, in every day of our life, this plays a key role. So concerted effort is needed. So we're building an ecosystem. That's how we need to look at it. And the ecosystem needs to be coordinated, not kind of everybody goes this way and that one goes the other way, and we miss the point. So it's a very good time to think from ecosystem building perspective and see how everything coordinates and collaborates to achieve that intended end. I think that's a very essential. And to finalize it, all this happens when there is right capacity created. And I understand the need to open up and also invite others to take part. But in the end, sustainability can be ensured by creating local, generic capacity. That's also very important. And that's where we fit in. This partnership fits in rightly to build that local capacity so that we minimize dependence on outside knowledge, but we share. We get to the point where we can talk eye to eye and say, okay, now Ethiopia has this experience, that country has that experience, and that country has that experience. We bring it together, and which would be better not only for Ethiopia, but for the region. And after a few years, I believe, then we would become, through their support today, David and his team, a few years later, our vision is that we have that capacity who can equally discuss, have that conversation as, as partners, getting to the same platform about the experiences, about the functioning of the capital market and everything. We want to get there as quick as possible and catch up. And catching up is the key term here, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's what I think so.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gammachuu Waqtola from iCapital Africa Institute, and also Mr. David Wainaina from Nairobi Securities Exchange. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable experiences from the Kenyan Securities Exchange, Nairobi Securities Exchange, and also for sharing your valuable insights into the Ethiopian project, which is going to be launched soon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Dear viewers, this has been the conversation with Dr. Gammachuu Waqtola from iCapital Africa Institute, and David Wainaina from Nairobi Securities Exchange. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Sintayo Tamrat with this special edition. See you another time.